Hello again, dear ones. Rev BRZ with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And do I introduce myself, Reverend Mark Gilbert?
Absolutely.
All right,
Well,
cool. Learning
and
as I go.
this is New Thought Today here on the New Thought Media Network. Happens every Tuesday at 2 p.m. And I know, folks, we've been promising you guests for weeks now, and everything's been, and we had Reverend Mark scheduled for next week, but he's here today. And well, that's how we roll sometimes. We get a new thought, we do something different than we planned. And I want you to know we've been having a fabulous conversation for the last half hour leading into all of this. And so I think you are in for a treat because number one, I think you all know how much I just love Rev Z and the way he looks at this philosophy in life. And I don't know that I've ever said this directly to Reverend Mark or not, but he's been one of the inspirations in my experience, one of my teachers overall, watching you, witnessing you. And I find very few people that articulate the science of mind philosophy so precisely and succinctly in his presentations, his talks. Anytime I get a chance to watch you speak, it's always so educational and inspiring all at the same time. So, Reverend Mark, we're really grateful to have you here today. Welcome aboard. Take a moment or two and share with the world and tell everybody what you're doing and where you are and all that kind of stuff.
Well, first off, it's great to be here, and thank you for those very kind words. I'm very honored by what you just said, and I appreciate that. And obviously, science of mind is an essential aspect of my life. All the concepts of new thought. And what am I doing? I worked for CSL, for Centers for Home Spiritual Living, for Home Office for 10 years and retired about a year ago. But in the last year, I've been sort of like semi-retired, feeding my YouTube channel and my blog site, Conscious Bridge. But in the moment right now, I've been sort of in a conscious downturn, in that spiral of newness, fullness, release, and the void. I've been a little bit in the void lately. In fact, I got this intuition about a month ago to slow up on videos and blogs and just take time to reflect. And so I have really been in that space since early to mid-November, going back to speaking of science of mind, going back to science of mind roots. I have a lot of books you can see behind me. That's 2 rows of books, by the way. And I got all these new thought books. A lot of them I've read many years ago, many I've never even read. And so I got on this sort of like rabbit hole thing where all of a sudden I started pulling books off my shelf and deciding I was going to read them. And I've been on a Donald Curtis kick lately. For those of you who don't know who Donald Curtis was, he was an actor back in the 30s and 40s in Hollywood, and he played in movies there. And then he became a science of mind minister, studying with Ernest Holmes, and he wrote several books himself, including one called The Golden Bridge, which I'm going through right now, and another one called Your Thoughts Can Change Your Life. I'm doing a promo for somebody whose books are probably out of print. But I'm going back and and it's and the only reason to mention this is it's a good refresher for me about the basics, and then to look at how somebody else says it, or a perspective, or a little kernel that they throw in there. And sometimes I'll stop and discuss it with my wife and say, wow, I really like how this guy phrases this. What's this? So that's sort of where I am right now. It's in a sort of like void, waiting to birth something in 2022, knowing newness is coming out. It was in the middle of writing a new book, and put the brakes on it. I'm just like, let's go back and reflect. And so doing a lot of prayer work and a lot of reading.
Well, Mark, I love that because like you, and I'm sure like a ton of new thoughters, if you will, I have rows of books, one row in front of another row. And I've kind of done the same thing where I've read books early in my trajectory, if you will, and now I'm cycling back and I'm saying, "Ooh, this looks interesting again," and reading some of them and finding that I'm looking at things differently now, and they seem more appropriate now in a different kind of way, and I just love that because, as you indicated, we're on this spiral, and I know you do a lot of work on spiral dynamics, but but this whole thing about moving forward and coming back to the different aspects of the cycle. You know, I'm at this energy point and it feels the same, but it's slightly different because I'm at a different level of the spiral. And so now I need to reintegrate again so I can take off. And that's how I'm feeling for 2022. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Two thoughts came up for me while you were talking there. One was the fact that so many of these books, we read them from the perspective of where we are at that time. And like a lot of us, when we first came to New Thought or Science of Mind, we might have been in a more materialistic frame of mind where, you know, we had health issues, relationship issues, material job issues, whatever, but we looked at it and wanted prosperity stuff, material things. But one of the things that we've always, most of us recognize is that some people stay with that, but some people, many of us, grow up beyond that and get to a point where we start seeing the deeper questions and issues with it. And so when we come back and read the same books over, we're a different person. And now what we're looking for is the meaning in life and trying to put the puzzle of life together. You know, so that's a cool thing. You know, the other thing about revisiting books, you know, for me is that sometimes I get in the habit that I collect more books than I can consciously read.
Yes.
No, I never did that.
You know, so what I started doing, then you go get some from the library, then you download some ebooks, you know, and then they're all over the place. And then, but I started, one of the things I did was I had categorized or cataloged all my books a few years ago using this app, because my wife and I kept finding we were buying books, and one would say to the other, "I already have that book. Why aren't you buying that book?" And so I put a catalog together with this app, and the app, I decided to replace the app with a web-based thing called Library Thing. I'll put a plug in for them. Really kind of cool app, and it took all my prior database and loaded it into it. Well, what it had me doing is I've been doing a little cleanup work, and I'm going through and looking at it and going, "Oh, I've got that book." And then I'm running back. I don't even know it's back there. I have to go searching it out. And that's how they're ended up on my desk, is in the mandatory to read stack.
Nice. I love this part of the conversation, and yes, I too am a lover of books out there, folks, more than I know what to do with. And when I first got involved with this, I was still kind of what I refer to as a purist. I couldn't write in a book, didn't highlight like they were sacred. And then somewhere along the line, it was like, all right, well, I could use a highlighter. That'd be okay. And then I started to realize, no, what am I doing? And so for probably going on 15 years or more now, I will take my notes in the book and I will write directly in the margins and circles and arrows and connections. And it's fascinating, as you've both shared, to go back and look at that and have an even more definitive, well, that is exactly what I was believing at that time, because that's what I wrote down. That's my note here and this. And some of those things do hold up over time. And some of them, oh, wow, yeah, maybe a little too materialistic, or I have a newer perspective on those principles at this point. That's the beauty of New Thought, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
We grow and evolve our understanding. And as we do, we're able to grow and evolve the demonstrations as well.
Yeah, we actually have a relationship with that book. You know, I think one of the things when you start writing and highlighting and putting your notes in there, it becomes a part of you and you become a part of it. And it you slowly sort of meld together in an interesting way.
Yeah. Well, you know, and you bring up something for me that I used to do. I used to read the book and then go and try not to highlight. I'm a highlighter and note taker too. So sometimes the whole page is highlighted. I'm like, what's the point? But so I moved from that into trying to read it and highlight maybe just a little, but then go back and read it again and do mastermind charts per chapter, which works out great, because no matter where I was before, when and if I get a chance to go back, I can always add to it and embellish on where I was at that point, as you were saying, but also maybe add some more clarity to that point now, because I've had these experiences, as you say, Mark, where I was more in a materialistic manifestation phase at a physical level, and now I'm more at a spiritual manifestation level, and see how the two diverge and converge at the same time.
I'm with you. One quick funny thing is my wife likes highlighting, and I'll come over to Mary sometimes and I'll look at her book, and everything will be highlighted except maybe a word or two. And I'll say, "Why didn't you highlight that one word?"
It'd been easy to just write at the top, whole page.
Let's just go to the page yellow.
that's the higher inner editor going, yes. Yeah, that word was unnecessary. She just doesn't highlight the unnecessary word. But this is a rich conversation, because what's striking me is you're bringing forward names I don't know, Mark, and that means there's a piece of my education, my understanding, my exploration of this philosophy that is still incomplete. That's not only a place for me to grow, but it makes me reflect on our communities, that how easy it is to forget, perhaps, that the science of mind was a correlation, a compilation of vast wisdom of tradition and spiritual traditions and ideas. And we almost pigeonholed ourselves into, well, if Holmes said it, it's cool, but we don't quote a lot of those other authors quite as much anymore. I know, it's easy for me to pick up the science of mind, and my notes are there. I can write a talk in 20 minutes. I like that we're bringing back some of the basics, as you were putting it.
Yeah, and I think, again, the categorizing my books made this highlight it for me, because I started realize what I got to the point was I have a lot of New Thought books, and a lot of them are by other people. And I've had various periods where I got on a kick of going out on eBay and buying them, or I'd be at book sales and there would be some book I'd never heard of by somebody, and I would pick it up. And you collect things over the years, and they look really good at the time, but of course, like we've all said, you get to much more than you can physically read. But when this categorization made me say, well, let's go back and look at some of them. Maybe that was part of why I needed to slow down and take some time and reflect upon it. And you're so right. It's easy for us, and especially in science of mind, to say Ernest Holmes, if you're in Unity, to look at the Fillmores and so forth. And yet there are so many people who have come through New Thought and have put their own spin and perspective on it. And it's easy for us in these modern times to look at modern writers. We can feel like a Deepak Chopra and say, he's a major voice for New Thought. This, even though he expands beyond New Thought, he is New Thought so much. Yet there are so many of the, and not to negate them, I think we need to be looking at and be on the cutting edge of these New Thought people with a new perspective, because that's where we're growing. That's where we're moving. I think that was one of the things we're going to get into today. It's 2022, but at the same time, anchor yourself and look at the past and recognize there's a lot of people who have put a lot of thought into it. One more book I'll mention, since we're on this topic. I wasn't intending to do this, but it's on my desk. Spirits in Rebellion. I think many of us had to read this, parts of it back in some class in a distant past. A non-New Thought guy who wrote a history of New Thought circa early 1960s. So the book's a little dated, but it's one of the better New Thought texts. And I picked it up last night and started reading through this thing. And, I'm, that far into it, but I intend to continue on, because I thought I want to anchor myself in an understanding of who these people are and who else is out there. I know, the Emma Curtis Hopkins, teacher of teachers, we all had to learn, that, and so many of the major names, but there's a lot of other people who had a lot of perspective and teachings, and I think they can. We need to do a balance that honors the past and the people who've explored these topics before, and also honor the current ones, including ourselves, as we move forward, and use them to anchor ourselves, but grow from it, as we look into the future and where the world is going.
Yeah. As you were sharing that, I'm reminded of this mighty book, The Prosperity Bible. And only a handful of these people would be, quote, New Thought authors. But everybody in this book is sharing to some degree. Once you know New Thought, you see it. You can see it. You can see how it's influenced. And I wouldn't, and this is just based around one topic. We could create a dozen of these books. Right, the New Thought compilation on forgiveness and prosperity and this and that, because of the wealth of people that have studied and have allowed for the revelation. Allow. That's another thing I've always appreciated about this is from the first time you walk in the door, if you want to put it on paper, people will support you in it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have a dozen years in a ministerial degree to actually understand this and share it with others. You know, a couple decades in a ministerial degree does help. It does make it a little easier. But the material and the truth and the philosophy is very accessible because it's everywhere.
Yeah. And it's been around for a long, long time. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, I think we, before we jumped on, we were talking about a new approach to living, if you will. I'll take that term kind of tongue in cheek because I know there's some books out there by Ernest on that. But for me and talking to different people, it appears to be this epiphany point that Ernest talks about where spirituality and religious comes together, and that has been done by Bruce Lipton and Deepak and so many. But I think one thing that's hidden it for me is to go back and look at some of the original writers, some of the older books written back like before 35, let's say, and back, and look at the languaging. Now, some of the languaging is not politically correct, as we would say now, but the kind of simplicity in which it was written, and understanding that in that era, Ernest talks about it all the time. If you're going to say a treatment and nothing happens, then you didn't do a good treatment, and we're going to keep treating until something happens, not just have a good feeling and then move on and make an assumption. And so how do we begin, especially going into this new year, to take these principles to another level so that we say the prayers, we say the affirmations, we say the treatments, so that we can get a verification that something has happened or something has shifted? It could just be a shift in mentality, but it gives us an increase indwelling of the spirit to keep moving and be that example and begin to find our own unique way in what spirituality means, what religion / way of life look like, and see where they converge.
Yeah, that's a great question, Elzia. And for me, everything always starts with getting clarity regarding your intention. And I think as we're let me just voice this. I think that many of us have felt that for the last 2 years, we've been in a weird space in the world, in the physical world. And there's things going on in the world that we wish to move through. We all know the concept that sometimes we have to go through the challenges in order to grow and evolve. We all know there's breakdowns before breakthroughs, that everything that might appear to be negative is an opportunity for learning, for us to grow. And so we've had this sort of like learning period that we're now, many of us are ready to release. And we look at a year, sometimes the marker of a new year for many of us means the ending of an old and the beginning of the new. It's part of that annual cycle that we were going through, And so we're releasing 2021 and we're moving into 2022 with fresh eyes, the little baby with the sash around him, and we're gonna grow into the greatest expression. But it begins by saying, what is it we want to create in this next year? What is it that is, and what is our role? What is New Thought's role collectively, and what is us as individuals going to do? I think at the individual level, it's for us to look to gain clarity regarding what kind of world we want to live in and create in 2022 and going forward. And then be a beneficial presence for the creation of that, which means, yes, we're still going to see negativity in the world. We're still going to see things that are less than what we want. But by being a beneficial presence, we don't feed the negativity, and we keep our eyes on the prize and the growth and the intention of what we want to create. That we turn our attention to those evidence that supports the world that we wish to see. Yes. And I think that when we do that individually as New Thoughters, then collectively New Thought can move in that direction as well. That we can see and be the voice of a beneficial presence, assisting to create that world that works for everybody.
Folks, if you didn't hear that, we can't rewind, but I want you to hear that question. What is the role of New Thought as we move into the coming day, the coming weeks, the coming years, the coming decades? And quick shout out to our friend Linda. Linda is asking if we've read The Optimist Creed by Christian D. Larson. And yes, absolutely agree. Early New Thought leader and a great work. Well, we're all dropping our favorite book titles today, so that's a good thing.
Halfway of Roses by Christian D. Larson.
Yes,
and you know, there's another author that I'm have a lot of his stuff, and I'm getting back into him. That's oh man, what's his name? William Walker Atkins. And
okay.
And he wrote around the turn of the century, 1900, 1902, and he has a good little book on the law of the new thought. That just talks about this whole idea of what we, thought of things and how do you apply these principles. And that's what I think is really going to be beneficial as we move forward into 22 and beyond. Is I think for those who've been in the movement for a while or on the fringes, understand and can articulate the principles and the laws. Now we need to move to that level of, okay, how do I put this into practice every day? And what are the manifestations of that result? And, get my field note book and start saying, well, when I did this and I felt that was result to this. When I did it the other way, I didn't like that result too much. And begin to get in tune with the feelings and the emotions and the body sensations of when you've hit that energy sweet spot, and I'm on to something here.
Yeah.
Because as they say, success leaves clues. So if there's some success, there's some clues around, and if we can get them, then we can follow.
Yes.
Yeah. In tune with the infinite. Ralph Waldo Trine. And
yes.
You were making that statement about being in tune. I think that when we are in tune with who we truly are, that we are truly in tune with God, and we're in tune with the infinite. And a lot of it's so easy in our day-to-day affairs to get sucked into all the stuff that's going on in the world and see that as the real reality.
Yep.
And we buy into it. It's somebody told me one time in a Twitter comment that it's a very mesmerizing. It may be an illusion, but it's a very mesmerizing one, I think, as they put it. And it's not to say that this physical stuff is not real. I liked how Ernest said it. It's real as form, I think, as he put it, which meant that it's not the real reality, but it is real in a sense. But we get so mesmerized by it that we forget our spiritual nature and to be in tune with the infinite. And so anything that we can do that these books, or for those who don't read, there's lots of YouTube videos out there too. I mean, go Google them. There's lots of Ernest videos and Joseph Murphy and Joel.
Well, I just figured out Z's secret.
What's his secret?
It's the archive. It's the internet archive, the archive of everything. And because I did a real quick search, the law of New Thought, and there it is, and there's the book. And I dropped the link in the show comments, folks. You can copy and paste that if you want, because I'm sure this is not an easy one to find. It may be on Mark's maybe on Mark's bookshelves, but not an easy book to find. But thank you, Z, because now I've got a couple of things to add to my reading list now. But folks, we really do. We're drifting into the real fun of this, is because we really do want to look at how do we go about catching the vision, being in this receptive place of saying, okay, I may not know what next year is supposed to be. And I've got a little thing I'm working with, everything new in 22. Pretty easy, right? And it doesn't mean new stuff. It means that we're looking at the world through new eyes. In 2019, 2 years ago, most of us knew what we were about to go through was possible, but none of us thought it was probable, except for maybe some scientists. Many of us didn't want to look at what we would have to face in such an experience. Well, now we're on the other side of it. And we've been talking about it for 2 years, that we're not going back. So we've got to start to look at everything with that new set of eyes. And from a set of eyes that has compassion and all the things we've been working with, emotional intelligences, and working to, well, create a world that works for everyone, right, guys? So everything new becomes a calling to say, I don't want to look upon what's happening as if we're trying to revert back to what it was. But how does it propel us into who our newness is and who we're going to be as individuals and communities? Yeah.
And I think, go ahead, Mark.
I was going to simply say that and recognize that we're coming at from one perspective and other people are coming at it from another perspective. And that I think you used the word compassion, and we do have to have that compassion. Yeah. I think one of the first things is to sit down, which, I always sort of like joked about New Year's intentions, because you can write intentions any time of the year. You have to wait to the first of the year. But I think because we're approaching the first of the year and we're talking about a new year, I think it is a beautiful time to reflect upon what is it you'd like to see for the world, for yourself, collectively for everyone in 2022 and the future years. Sit down and, visualize it, vision on it. But if nothing else, write down something and then talk about it with other people and gain clarity about what it is you want to create. And then recognize that even there's going to be lots of roadblocks to that, but so what? You're a conduit towards it. You're working towards it. Be a force for good. And it's like a reference to a beneficial presence. And if we can be a presence that's working towards that, then, it's going to assist us in moving further. So Z, what are you going to say? I'm sorry.
And the thing that, I said this the other day, and a lot of people have challenges with New Year's resolutions and stuff, whatever. But I think if we make proclamations, we're going to make New Year's proclamations, then say we're going to proclaim that this is what we want and this is what we want to do, which in a little way shift the energy, right? Mm-hmm. And we know with new thoughts, sometimes it's just that. It's just that slight shift in energy and perspective that opens up a whole new wellspring of stuff that was always there, but because we was in a certain mode, we didn't get it. And begin to, I'm a science guy, so you got to experiment with this stuff. You got to, Ernest would always say, take these ideas and apply them in the laboratory of your own life.
Yes, exactly.
Because what works for me, in principle, it'll work for you and everybody else, but there's a slight tweak, between what I do at 32 degrees and what I do at 42 degrees to get the same results.
Exactly. Folks, you're watching New Thought Today. I'm Rev BRZ, this is my co-host Rev Z, and our very special guest, Reverend Mark Gilbert. We're going to take a brief moment here to let you know about a few things that are going on around the network, and let these gentlemen grab a drink of water and maybe run off to the bio break if necessary. Most important thing I want to share with you is Envision 2022. We're sitting here today having this great conversation. We're all talking about catching a vision for what 22 might hold or what your role might be in it. I'd like to offer you an opportunity to dive into that a whole lot deeper. Envision a new you in 2022. This is a 7-day visioning retreat. There's 21 sessions, 3 different sessions a day. Starting Monday, December 27th, you can attend one session or all the sessions, as many as you like. I'll be facilitating these, and we'll be facilitating them live each and every session. There is a suggested love offering, and no experience is necessary. Even if this is like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. Come on in and hang out with us. It's a very easy and fun process. We'll make sure you get a chance to play with it. And we'd also like to take a quick moment to say thank you to some of our sponsors.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. and Suze Ajit. Thank you for your very generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferland Foundation for your generous technology grant. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
And if you'd like to get your name on that slide of all of our committed donors, please head on over to ntmedia.org, click on the donate button, and add your list to become part of this family. You can set it for a one-time donation or a recurring monthly donation, and any amount goes a long, long way to making sure that we can continue to bring this mighty message out into the world. So speaking of which, this is New Thought Today. Let's get back into the show. We've got our dear friend, Reverend Mark Gilbert is with us today. My co-host, Reverend Elzia Sekou as well. And we've been having, well, nowhere near the discussion we intended, but that's okay. We've had a lot of fun going wherever we want to go. So we want to offer you folks an opportunity to be a part of this. If there's something you'd like to hear us talking about, drop it in the chat box. If you'd like to connect with any of us, please send an email, ministertalk@ntmedia.org. I think we all agree between the three of us, we could pretty much riff on anything. So if you're out there and you've got a question, put it in the chat box. We'd be happy to chat about it. But ultimately, what we're looking at is how, and we know it's different for everyone, right? So I guess the question is, what's your favorite practice, Mark? What's that thing that really gets you the most into that creative space, into that place of being open to the revelation of what you're being called to do and what might be happening in your world? What's your best modality, your best tool?
Well, it's meditation is the short answer. But I have to, of course, expound for a second about something. Is that years ago when I would sit on a meditation cushion or in a chair or whatever, I had these expectations that at first I thought I was going to have this wonderful like oneness experience, and I overlaid it with too many expectations. And then I said, okay, I just want to quiet my mind. I want to quiet my mind, and my mind would continuously go. And so over time, I had this evolution in my meditation practice. That yes, I would have brief moments of quiet mind and brief moments of beyond the form experiences, but so many times I had stuff flowing through me, ideas flowing through me, and I had this battle that I was making of stop the thoughts. I'm trying to meditate here, and I had to recognize that, well, maybe that's a message for you, and I sit in meditation, and if my mind is quiet, it's a blessing. But if thoughts flow, and I don't mean the day-to-day, I got to go do this, I got to go do that. Right. But I get into a quiet space, and then stuff appears. And I think if you've experienced it, you know the difference I'm talking about. Yep. Is that stuff comes out of nowhere with general creative ideas that are often ideas that are messages for me and what's mine to do. And it may not be real clear, but it starts dropping seeds with me for further exploration. So meditation, because I think so much, and I tried to make this point earlier, and I didn't do a good job in my own mind about it, was that we get mesmerized by the world out there, but meditation is a time for us to withdraw from the world and to be in the flow and not in the material, but in the spiritual. And the more that we can balance time in the spiritual realm, helps us deal more effectively in the material realm. But to also see that spiritual realm is an opportunity for us to be open, to let go of our expectations about what we're supposed to experience during that time, and be open to the messages that come through in that time. Mm-hmm. There's true intuition and knowledge and wisdom that flows through. And when I can truly listen, is when I've gotten the greatest messages for me and what is mine to do to be a beneficial presence on earth.
Thank you. You bring that phrase back again and again, and I love it. I've always loved that. How do we be a beneficial presence on the planet?
Yeah.
And and if I looked at that question, for me now at this moment, what I'm finding really helpful for me is this whole idea of musing, or just contemplative, daydreaming, reflective thinking, that allows me, to have free thought, to take an idea and just let it go, without any restrictions, as Mark was saying, without any filtering, without any preconceived ideas of what the thing is, and allow the spirit, if you will, to impose, if you will, or highlight the connections, and just let it go. Because I know for myself, and I find it to be true somewhat for all of us, if we're in any type of ideology, philosophy, religion, or whatever, we can sometimes get in that groove or get in that rut, depending on how you look at it, and we start discarding things, or discounting things, and those things are potentially very, very important, and may be the key to unlock some stuff that we've been looking for a while.
Yeah, beautifully said. What about you, Robert?
For me, the practice is visioning. And what I'm hearing is the similarity between all of these is that desire to move beyond the human concepts of it, to be open to a greater concept or a greater idea, often an epiphany. I hadn't thought about this in a long, long time. And I was recently, in the last several hours, saw a meme that spoke to that concept of coming to everything with a beginner's mind. And so as you were chatting, Z, that's what I personally have lost. I kind of lost touch with that, coming to things with a beginner's mind. Right? I'm the minister. I'm the guy that taught, and I'm supposed to have all those. And so I have forgotten that, wait a minute. Yeah, I have a lot of knowledge in XYZ area and whatever topic the meeting is about.
Mm-hmm.
But that's knowledge that's been accrued and cultivated by me. That doesn't mean it's the end all of it. And so to go beyond even my own belief limitations, and for me, visioning does that. It triggers me into a place of unlimited potential and possibility. And a lot of it probably never comes true. A lot of it never does come true. And to me, that's how I filter my humanness. If it's not coming to pass, it was me and not the divine.
What you bring to mind for me is this constant reminder I give to myself that spirit shows up in the multiplicity of forms and ideas and expressions. And so it's so easy to get locked into an egoic, well, I've got the right idea, this is the right way, and to discount something over here that looks so totally foreign to me or not, useful. And then say, but spirit's showing up as that.
Yeah.
And let's honor that expression. Doesn't mean at the end of the day that I have to go with whatever that idea is, but just to recognize that, there is value in all the multiplicity within the unity of the one. Well, one other spiritual practice I do want to mention, because my wife and I do this most nights, is we have the question, what was the best part of your day?
Yes.
And it's because so much of the time we can, you can get into this happened and this happened and this, kind of a negative stuff. But we always try to orient it back to, the positive and to recognize that we got so many gifts. That moving through this human expression that we're all doing is giving us so many gifts. But there's this human tendency to focus on the worst things that go on, and not focus on the best things. But every day has multiple gifts. Even this conversation is a great gift, and to focus on it.
Yeah, and you both remind me of that. They say it's a Taoist saying or a Buddhist saying, in that the monks say you can never step into the same river twice. In that, every moment is a new moment, no matter how familiar the backdrop may seem. And so if we can begin to take that as an impetus to say, okay, how do I integrate myself and take from this thing that may seem old or may seem commonplace when in actuality we know it's not, and then we can begin to say, hey, what happened? What happened different just then? It's kind of like that. I just saw this the other day. This whole the new Matrix is coming out, and I was watching some clips from the first one, and there's the scene where Neo sees the cat, and the cat does the same thing, and he says, "Wait a minute, that doesn't happen. It never happens the same way. So something's out of place here now. So we need to take a broader look." And I got so much out of that little clip is that when things seem the same, I've gotten out of sync and I need to change my approach.
Yes. I was afraid you were going to tell us about a clip from the new one, and I'm trying to be like, la, 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 the spoiler alert.
No, I wouldn't do that.
I did mention my birthday is the 20th of December, right?
Yes.
I think I know what I'm doing that night. As soon as I get tickets, I'll be there. But I love what you're saying, right? To me, that's the quick red flag. Oh, I know how this ends. Oh, I've done this before. Anything that starts with I know and leads to a condition or an experience. Nope. All you know is what happened last time you were there.
Right.
You might see that tree that tripped you up last time. You might recognize that you're walking into an abusive relationship. You might have that epiphany that you should turn left instead of right. So anytime there's the I know, wait a minute, hold on. Can I suspend that belief for a minute and be open to the mystery of what else could be?
That's the key, because a lot of the old time religions, if you will, they always say we've lost the mystery of life. We think because of the science, which we know is good and confirms a lot and so forth, but we've gotten to this point now where we think there are no more mysteries, and so we begin to operate from that perspective, and it trips us up every time.
Yeah, how many times in our own lives did we think we know everything, and then we grew and evolved and looked back on it and realized how little we knew back then. If we can reflect upon our lives, and so many times you have that fantasy of I like to go back with the wisdom that I've got now and live that experience over. But we know that we went through that experience to get where we are now. It was a very critical aspect of our own personal growth, and what we're going through now. It's so hard to say, well, maybe this is a critical part of the growth for where I'm going.
Yep. Anytime I see that meme, what would you go tell your 20-year-old or whatever? I'm always like, just keep going. You're fine. Just keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. You're okay. Because you're right. I really wouldn't. Yeah, there's stuff I would want differently. But that is that ego piece that says, wait, no. I went through it. What can I get from it? And and oftentimes for me, and how do I support others from going through that, or that are in something similar to that, the great learning of it.
And it's not to say we can't have regret over parts of our life that didn't go, that we now, with the wisdom we have now, we recognize we'd want to do it differently. But I think, that you balance the regrets. The regret is part of the feeling that is the impetus to you to continue to grow and not do that again, and to learn from that and express yourself at a higher level the next go around.
And I'm looking forward to 22. And from a numerology perspective, it wouldn't come out this way if you did pure numerology, but the number 22 is a master number. It's considered a master number, which the whole duality of it, the two numbers and the parallels and the yin and yang of it. And I think we're being set up, if you will, given everything that's happened up to now and where we're moving, midterm elections and new perspective on the economy and relationships. I think if we can put it in the right vernacular and perspective, and as you were saying earlier, Mark, not that we put our head in the sand, I'm paraphrasing, in an ostrich mode, but begin to look at what's there and figure out, okay, I know that's there and I'm going to prepare for that. And I'm going to be, ready if that happens, but I'm going to focus on the brighter side of this thing and see what the results is. And I think that's what 22 is going to really provide for us if we take advantage of it.
Mm. Yeah. Amen.
Well, I'm looking forward to 2022 too. I think that, I tend to be an optimist, and I'm a realist to the degree that I watch stuff and look at the world and what's going on out there. And I can get sucked into it. But at the same time, I think that this downtime that I was talking about earlier has been valuable for me to recognize that I need to spend less time immersing myself in the dramas of the world and directing my energy towards that world that I want to see exist, that I want to manifest. And I think that's the value that New Thought has, I think, so many values that it can bring to the world. And I want to stress a point here, because it's really easy for people in New Thought to say, oh, we're a quote unquote small faith. There's not that many people even know what New Thought is, etc. Yet we can stress the fact that all it takes is 10% of the population believing something for that new idea to sort of blossom through the world, and that much of New Thought and the people who believe New Thought wouldn't call themselves in New Thought. That we've actually are cutting edge philosophy that is seed planting, that is putting ideas that are slowly becoming mainstream. So that when we see the Wayne Dyers and the Deepak Chopras and the things that are somewhat mainstream, and we can point and say that's New Thought, even though they don't call themselves New Thought, or that so many things out there are clearly New Thoughtish in their perspective that have become mainstream, we can see that there is actually we have a wide bully pulpit within New Thought to create and manifest that world. So let's release that sense that New Thought is small. People who label themselves New Thought might be small given the percentage or number of people on the planet, but the ideas are large and they're very widespread. And so to that degree, I think that we can see great value in the seed planting and leadership that New Thought provides. And the other thing is to recognize that everything begins in consciousness, and that by the very nature that we as individuals are thinking into that one mind, the positive thoughts for the creation of a new world in 2022 that creates and manifests opportunities for every individual expression of the one to manifest its highest possible life. The more that we're individually doing that, the more that we're individually feeding and seeding that one mind with that idea that's being planted in the minds of others through subjective thought. So we actually have a great value here to be a force for good. And the final thing I'm going to get off my soapbox for a moment is to let go of evidence of the contrary. Because yes, we can focus on that, but what we resist persists. But what we focus on is what we grow. And the more that we can turn our attention to seeing the good in the world, seeing the love in the world, to being that force for love, the more we're going to manifest that. We know it. We know it. We know it. And then we set back and get sucked into the world of form, and then we have the inconsistent thinking and the inconsistent actions. And the more we can move ourselves individually to collectively focusing on that good, the more we're going to see it. Soapbox end.
Well, the thing that you brought up for me, Mark, I think about right now, when I look back on when I first got involved with New Thought back in 2002, 2004, and decided to go into practicing and become minister, the things like What the Bleep was just coming out, and Conversations with God, and the Celestine Prophecy came out a little before that, and they were talking about these ideas and these whole things about moving this kind of mindfulness and body mind awareness forward. And now there's not a major corporation, I definitely know in the United States and probably in the world, that doesn't have some kind of mindfulness practice integrated into their framework. Body work is now becoming more and more accepted into insurance, so that it's paid for now and it's not some alternative thing. Acupuncture, acupressure, trigger points. And so when we begin to think about where we've come in a short time, just 20 years, next year will be 2022. So that'll be 20 years if we start at 2002. We've come a long way to getting these things integrated into a lifestyle that everybody is beginning to pick up and know that it's not either or, it's both and that's what we're beginning to work with. And it's such a great place to be, I think. And if and moving forward, I think we if in 22, if we can really hone that in from a, as you said, from a consciousness perspective, and just think about how far we've come in 20 years, and we know that there's a momentum being gathered. In 5 years, we may be in a place that we don't even recognize in relationship to this whole idea of new thought and consciousness. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, you're so right, LZ. It's sort of like what they tell you when you've got stocks in the stock market. Don't drill down and watch a stock on the hourly or daily level, because it's like that.
Yes.
But when you step back and look at things from a bigger standpoint, a larger time frame, you see that the arc is always upward. It's like and we see that the arc of humanity is moving towards greater equality. It's moving towards, in spite of our drill down right now, we can see all the income inequality going on. There's greater wealth and prosperity. There's greater acceptance of and tolerance for diversity. There is less violence. We are on upward trends in so many areas when we can step back and see the big picture, that we are evolving to greater and greater expressions. But when we drill in on this little up and down with humanity and the things that we're going through, it's like one of my kids asked me the other day if I was concerned about the direction of the country, and there's all this other, this talk of the divide that is going on. And I've written a lot about the political divide and our divisiveness. And he asked me how I felt about it. And I said, overall, I'm optimistic. And I said, that doesn't mean that we might not in the immediate future experience things that are less than what we want. But what we have to focus on is that in the long arc of time, those challenges that we're experiencing collectively in the world are just opportunities that are growth points that are going to assist us, and I have no doubt through my optimism that the arc of humanity is going to continue to move towards oneness and love and greater care and concern for each other. But in the moment, if you drill down lowly, it may not look like that. And we may hit speed bumps, just like in our own life, we've had speed bumps, but our arc of our life has continued to go up too.
Yeehaw. Yes.
Yeehaw!
Reverend. And I love that. Thank you. Because that does speak to it. The arc is for the good, is upward, is moving us forward. And I'm struck by a couple of things that you were sharing, right? I'd never quite put it in the terms of, those of us that call ourselves New Thoughters might be a small number. But the reality is we are everywhere. And more and more and more and more, you can see that in popular culture. A few years back, there was a program called Madam Secretary. And the actor Tia Leone does a great job in it. And in one scene, she actually says, if we would all just, we could get back to the hard work of building a world that works better for everyone. Yeah. And my wife and I looked at each other and went, well, who's hanging out at Beckwith Church that's hanging out in that writer's room? Because there is a CSL Science of Minder in that writer's room, because you don't come across that phrase by accident, right? On this show, we like to give a lot of shout outs and props to Sharif Abdullah for the term "a world that works for all," which predates the "world that works for everyone" tagline. But how we can, if you just stay aware, you will see that this is already everywhere.
Yeah.
So we just have to keep living it, keep believing it, keep practicing it, rather than turning back to the old and everything that you're saying there, Mark, right? It's easier to bitch about the government than it is to recognize that there's got to be a pony in there somewhere.
Right. Yeah, and New Thought. It's our goal in New Thought is not to convert people to New Thought.
Yeah.
Our goal is to plant seeds and ideas to allow people to express themselves at the fullest of who they are, and they're naturally going to grow into a recognition of their unity with the universe and other people. They're naturally going to evolve to that, and it's not about becoming somebody who is a New Thoughter. But it's about New Thoughters openly expressing their ideas and concepts so that when people are ready for them, the message will be there in front of them.
Yeah. And they can have that personal epiphany of, oh, it's been right here all along, and I'm now going to say yes to this. And you're right, because that way nobody's converted you can never say you got converted into this.
And see, now you give me this whole image of the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy and her red slippers, and just click your heel 3 times. You've been there all the time. It's been there all the time. You just got to click the heels. You got to do the right thing.
That's right.
Yeah. Turn around in a circle 3 times. And
there's no place like home. There really
no place.
There's no place like folks, I'm looking at that clock on the wall there, and on that note of laughter, it would appear that we have successfully utilized our allotted time today. We trust that you've had at least some as much fun as I think we've all had here, sharing a perspective, a look, a view of New Thought today, and what and the future of New Thought as well. Reverend Mark, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
We would love to have you back again and again and again.
Whenever you want. Thank you.
And while we do that, before we go, that does remind me, folks, we've got a program on Saturdays that's called the New Thought the Science of Mind and Spirit Lecture Series. It's a 45-minute program every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. where we discuss the Science of Mind textbook by Ernest Holmes in deeper detail. And this year, Reverend Mark's joining our team.
Yes.
So LZ is already a member of the team. You can check out some of his talks from this past year in our archives. I'm part of the team, and Reverend Mark's joining us this year. So Mark, I'm really excited that we're going to get to hear more of you, not just in talk show format, but in presentation format throughout the coming year. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Robert. Thanks.
Absolutely. All right. Z, final thoughts?
Keep your eye on the prize in 2022 because we're gonna rev this thing to another level, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Reverend Mark?
It's been a wonderful conversation, and thank you guys for having me. And I say keep your eyes on the prize too.
Yes. And for me, it's everything new in 22. Take a look, a new perspective, a new look at everything in your life and how we're going to keeping on. Folks, we'll be back next week with more. Until then, thanks for being a part of this. Thank you for your donations, and thank you for sharing this mighty network, New Thought Media Network, with your friends and family. Till next time, peace.